but a bureaucratic mix-up, here I am, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. It's all right. I've always wanted to occupy Philadelphia and see a city full of brotherly love, haven't you? And why have I returned? To clear my name. You see, I've been reading your newspapers and listening to your talk radio, and they are all proclaiming that my ideas are dead. It's nothing new. These clowns have been saying this for more than 100 years. And don't you wonder, why is it necessary to declare me dead again and again? Well, I've had it up to here, so I asked for the right to come back, just for a while. But there are these rules. I told you it's a bureaucracy. Oh, I was permitted to read, even to watch, but not to travel. Like you, I protested. And even there, protest works. Finally, they said, all right, you can go back. You can have an hour or so to speak your mind. But remember, no agitating. Well, they do believe in freedom of speech, but within limits. They are liberals. So, spread the word. Marx is back. And I'm back because they claim that even though the Soviet Union has collapsed, that communism is dead. And do these idiots know what communism is? Do they think that a system run by a thug who murders his fellow revolutionaries is communism? Scheisskopf. Yes, yes. Journalists, politicians who say such things. What kind of education do they have? Did they ever read the manifesto that Engels and I wrote? In place of the old bourgeois society, with its classes and class antagonisms, we shall have an association in which the free development of each is the condition for the free development of all. Do you hear that? Yes, an association. And do they understand the objective of communism? Freedom of the individual to develop himself, herself, as a compassionate human being. And do they think that someone who calls himself a communist or a socialist, but acts like a gangster, understands what communism is? I mean, to shoot those who disagree with you. Can that be the communism I gave my life for? When that monster, who took all power for himself in Russia, and who insisted on interpreting my ideas like a religious fanatic, when he was putting his old friends up against the wall before firing squads, did he allow his citizens to read the letter I wrote to the New York Tribune, in which I said capital punishment could not be justified in any society calling itself civilized? Socialism is not supposed to reproduce the stupidities of capitalism. And here in America, your prisons are overcrowded, right? Who is in them? The poor. The poor. And some of them have committed violent, terrible crimes. Most of them are burglars, thieves, robbers, sellers of drugs. They believe in free enterprise. They do what the capitalists do, but on a much smaller scale. And do you know what Engels and I wrote about prisons? Rather than punishing individuals for their crimes, we should destroy the social conditions which create crime and give to each individual the scope he needs in society in order to develop his life. And yes, we spoke of a dictatorship of the proletariat, not a dictatorship of a party, of a central committee, not a dictatorship of one man. No, we spoke of a temporary dictatorship of the working class. The mass of people would take over the state and govern in the interests of all until the state itself would become unnecessary and gradually disappear. Bakunin, of course, disagreed. He said that a state, even a worker state, if it has an army, police, prisons, would become a tyranny. He loved to argue with me. Do you know about him, Bakunin, the anarchist? Well, if a novelist invented such a character, you would say the existence of such a person is not possible. And to say Bakunin and I did not get along is a great understatement. Listen to what he wrote at the time Engels and I were in Brussels writing the manifesto. Bakunin wrote, "Marx and Engels, but especially Marx, are ingrained bourgeois. We were ingrained bourgeois." Of course, compared to Bakunin, everyone was bourgeois because Bakunin chose to live like a pig. Yes. Yes, and if you didn't live like a pig, if you had a roof over your head, a piano in your sitting room, if you enjoyed some fresh bread and wine, you were bourgeois. And now I grant the man courage. See, he was in prison, sent to Siberia, and escaped. Wandered the world trying to foment revolution everywhere. He wanted an anarchist society. But the only anarchism he ever succeeded in establishing was in his head. Well, he tried to start an uprising in Bologna and almost killed himself with his own revolver. But his revolutions failed everywhere, but he was like a man whose failure with women only spurs him on to more. Did you ever see a photograph of Bakunin? He was a giant of a man. The bald head, which he covered with a little gray cap, massive beard, ferocious expression, but he had no teeth. The result of his prison diet, scurvy. And he seemed to live not in this world, but in some world of his imagination. He was oblivious to money. When he had it, he gave it away. When he didn't have it, he borrowed without any thought of returning it. And he had no home. Or you might say the world was his home. He would arrive at a comrade's house and say, "I'm here, where do I sleep, and what is there to eat?" In an hour, he was more at home than his hosts. Oh, there was that night in Soho, we were having dinner, and Bakunin burst in. He didn't bother to knock, and it was his habit to arrive at dinner time. Well, he almost knocks the door off its hinges, looks around, smiles his toothless smile, says, "Good evening, comrades," and without waiting for a response, he sat down in my chair and began devouring sausage and meat in enormous chunks, stuffing in cheese too, and glass after glass of brandy. And then he begins his usual performance. Preaching, arguing, ordering, shouting, exhorting. I was furious, but it was my wife Jenny who spoke up. She said, "Mikhail, please stop. You're consuming all of the oxygen in the room." And he just roared with laughter and went on and on and on. Bakunin's head was full of anarchist garbage, romantic, utopian nonsense. I wanted to expel him from the International. My wife Jenny thought this ridiculous. "Why," she asked, "do revolutionary groups with 6 members always threaten someone with expulsion?" And he had 100 disguises, because the police were looking for him in every country in Europe. When he came to us in Soho, he was disguised as a priest. At least he thought so. He looked ridiculous. This was the winter of 1871. The Commune had just taken power in Paris. Yes, the Paris Commune. Bakunin leaped with his full bulk into that revolution. And the French, they understood him. They had this saying: on the first day of a revolution, Bakunin is a treasure. On the second day, he should be shot. Do you know about that magnificent episode in human history, the Paris Commune? Well, the story starts with stupidity. I am speaking of Napoleon III, the nephew of Bonaparte. He was a buffoon, a stage actor smiling to the crowd, while 16 million French peasants lived in blind, dark hovels, their children dying of starvation. But because he kept the legislature, because the people voted, they thought they had a democracy. A very common mistake. Yes. And well, Bonaparte wanted glory, so he made the mistake of attacking Bismarck's armies. He was quickly defeated, whereupon the victorious German troops marched into Paris and were greeted by something more devastating than guns: silence. They found the statues of Paris draped in black, this immense, invisible, silent resistance. So the Germans did the wise thing. They paraded through the Arc de Triomphe and quickly departed. And the old French order, the Republic, liberals they called themselves, they did not dare enter Paris. They were trembling with fear because now, with the Germans gone, Paris was taken over by the workers, the housewives, the clerks, the intellectuals, the students, the armed citizens. And the people of Paris formed not a government, but something more glorious, something governments everywhere fear, a commune. The collective energy of the people. It was the Commune de Paris. People meeting 24 hours a day all over the city in knots of 3 and 4, making decisions together, while the city was encircled by the French army, threatening to invade at any moment. Paris became the first free city of the world, the first enclave of liberty in a world of tyranny. And I said to Bakunin, do you want to know what I mean by the dictatorship of the proletariat? Look at the Commune of Paris. That is true democracy, not the democracy of England or America, where elections are circuses, with people voting for one or another guardian of the old order, where whatever candidate wins, the rich will go on ruling you and your country. And your politicians are bloated with pride. The world will hold to the free enterprise system, they say. Has everyone become stupid? Don't they know the history of the free enterprise system, when governments did nothing for the people and everything for the rich? When your government gave 100 million acres of land free to the railroads, but looked away as Chinese immigrants and Irish immigrants worked 12 hours a day on those railroads, and they were dying in the heat and dying in the cold. And when the workers finally rebelled and went on strike, your government sent armies to smash them into submission. Why the hell did I write Das Kapital if not because I saw the misery of capitalism, of the free enterprise system?
Talk about false consciousness.
In England, little children were sent to work in the textiles mills because their tiny fingers could reach the spindles. In America, young girls went to work in the mills of Massachusetts at the age of 10. Died at the age of 25, and the cities were cesspools of vice and poverty. That is capitalism, then and now. And yes, I see all the luxuries advertised in your magazines and in your newspapers and on your screens. Yes, all those screens with all those pictures. You see so much and know so little. Doesn't anyone read history anymore? I mean, what kind of shit do they teach in the schools these days? Or civil wars, cold wars, world wars, holy wars, wars to end all wars. The anniversary of the Gulf War, a victory short and sweet. Anniversary of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and yes, I know all the reasons, the excuses. Make war to make peace. Kill to save lives in the name of democracy or freedom or love of country. Kill in the name of Jesus. Kill in the name of God. It goes on and on and on until there are hundreds of thousands of corpses in the fields. And children dying for lack of food and medicine. In Europe, Africa, Asia, Palestine, Afghanistan, Chechnya, Iraq, people killing one another over boundaries. Didn't you hear what I said 150 years ago? Wipe out these ridiculous national boundaries. No more passports, no more visas, no more border guards and immigration quotas, no more flags and pledges of allegiance to some artificial entity called a nation. Workers of the world, unite. I wish my wife Jenny were here. She'd know what to say about all this. In 1943, I wrote that in this new industrial system, capitalism, that people are estranged from their work because it is distasteful to them. I wrote that people are alienated from nature as machines, smoke, smells, noise invade their senses. Progress, it is called. And I wrote that people are alienated from each other because Under capitalism, everyone is set against everyone else, scrambling for survival. And I wrote that people are alienated from their own true selves, living lives that are not their own, living as they do not really want to live, so that a good life is possible only in dreams and fantasies. But it does not have to be this way. There is still a possibility of choice. Only a possibility, I grant. Nothing is certain. That is now clear. I was too damn certain. Now I know anything can happen. But people must get off their asses. Does that sound too radical for you? Remember, to be radical simply means to grasp the root of a problem. And the root is us. So let's not talk anymore about capitalism or socialism, but let's talk about using the incredible wealth of the earth for human beings. Give people what they need: food, medicine, clean air, pure water, trees, grass, pleasant homes to live in, some hours of work, more hours of leisure. And please don't ask who deserves it. Every human being deserves it. Well, it's time for me to go. But do you resent my coming back and irritating you? No! Well, look at it this way. It is the second coming. Christ couldn't make it. So Marx came. Thank you.